On a vacant lot in northwest Fresno, there is nothing but dirt and dry grass. It was supposed to be a bustling hub of economic relief. It was supposed to be the site of the largest Costco gas station in the region, with 32 pumps designed to serve thousands of families every day. Today, it stands empty. It is a monument to a legal system that has prioritized bureaucratic process over economic survival. Now, I want you to hold that image of the empty lot in your mind. Because 4,000 miles away, in the choke points of the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz, a different kind of emptiness is forming. Global shipping lanes are being threatened. Tankers are turning back. The drums of a wider conflict in the Middle East are beating louder than they have in 50 years. Most people think these two images are unrelated. They think a zoning dispute in California has nothing to do with a missile strike in the Persian Gulf. But they are wrong. These two events are on a collision course. They are the two jaws of a trap that is about to snap shut on the American middle class. One represents the destruction of supply from the outside due to war. The other represents the destruction of infrastructure from the inside due to policy. When they meet, likely in late 2025 or early 2026, the result will not just be high prices, will be a mathematical impossibility to fuel your life. We are looking at a scenario where $15 per gallon is not a nightmare, but a base case. Welcome to the era of scarcity by design. Welcome to the story of California's energy suicide, the internal sabotage, Costco, and the legal weapon. To understand the global threat, we must first look at the self-inflicted wound. Let's look at what happened in Fresno, because it is the perfect microcosm of the madness. Costco proposed a project that was, by every economic metric, a slam dunk for the community. They planned a 219,000 square foot warehouse. It was nearly twice the size of a typical big box store. They included a 32-pump gas station that would have acted as a massive price anchor for the entire city. We know the Costco model. They sell gas at a loss or near zero profit just to get you into the store. For a family in Fresno, filling up there instead of the Shell or Chevron down the street could save them $500 to $1,000 a year. That is real money. That is rent money. That is food money. The project was projected to generate $15 million a year in tax revenue for the city. It would have created hundreds of union jobs. City documents estimated the total annual economic benefit at over $55 million. But on July 17, 2025, Judge Jonathan Skiles issued a ruling that stopped it dead in its tracks. The lawsuit was brought by a group calling itself the Riverside Coalition for Responsible Planning. They used the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, as their weapon. This is the same weapon that has been used to block housing, water infrastructure, and now critical energy infrastructure. Their argument was technical, but the intent was clear. They argued that the 47,000 square foot last mile delivery warehouse attached to the project was not consistent with retail zoning. They argued that the city had not properly analyzed the greenhouse gas emissions. Coalition counsel Dan Brannick pressed the point hard. He claimed the city failed to provide evidence that the delivery warehouse was subordinate to the main store. The judge agreed that the environmental review was insufficient. And just like that, the project was frozen. The $15 million in tax revenue, gone. The cheap gas for working families, gone. The promise of a mega Costco was reduced to a stack of court filings and a vacant lot. But this ruling does something far more dangerous than just canceling a store. It sends a signal to every other retailer and developer in the state. It says that if you try to build infrastructure that lowers prices for the working class, you will be sued into oblivion. It says that environmental compliance is now more important than economic survival. The silent extinction, SB 445. But the Costco case is just the headline grabber. While everyone is watching the mega lawsuit, a much larger silent extinction event is taking place in the shadows. This brings us to Senate Bill 445. This is a piece of legislation that sounds boring on paper, but acts like a demolition crew in reality. The law requires all gas stations with single-walled underground storage tanks to replace them with double-walled tanks. The deadline is effectively January 1, 2026. The intention sounds noble. It is meant to prevent groundwater contamination. But here is the economic reality that the politicians ignored. The cost to dig up old tanks and install new ones is now hovering around $2 million per site. Let's do the math for a typical mom-man-pop station owner. Maybe they run an independent station in a rural town in the Central Valley. Their net profit margin, after paying for the fuel, the labor, the electricity, and the taxes, is often less than $50,000 a year. Now the state demands they spend $2 million on an upgrade. That is 40 years of profit. No bank will lend them that money. The math simply does not work. Owners turn to the state RUS program, hoping for grants or low-interest loans. But the application process has been a disaster. A Korean-American family who had run a Shell station for 3 decades waited nearly 24 months for a response, only to learn that approvals had stalled and contractors were booked solid through the deadline. A Mexican couple with an Arco station filed paperwork and paid for soil tests, only to watch permit reviews stretch into a second year. So, what are they doing? They are closing. They are red-tagging their own pumps and walking away. Not because of leaks, not because of violations, but because the state has mandated an expense that is mathematically impossible to pay. This is creating what experts call fuel deserts. We already have reports of fire trucks in rural Fresno County having to drive 20 miles out of their way just to refuel. Think about the national security implication of that. Emergency vehicles are burning fuel and wasting critical response time just to find a pump that works. School districts are shortening bus routes. Ambulance companies are charting their shifts around what is left of the fuel map. The safety net is thinning. California is deliberately dismantling its own distribution network right before the storm hits. The global chessboard preparing for war. Now, let's pivot to the storm that is gathering offshore. While California is busy shutting down gas stations, the rest of the world is preparing for a kinetic war that centers directly on energy. We need to look at the geopolitical map of late 2025 and 2026. The Middle East is no longer just a simmering tension. It is boiling over. The conflict involving Israel, Iran, and their respective proxies has moved beyond skirmishes. We are looking at a potential blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. This is the single most important energy choke point on the planet. 20% of the world's daily oil consumption passes through that narrow strip of water. If that strait is closed or even threatened significantly, the price of crude oil does not just go up, it goes vertical. And here is the contrast that should terrify you. Look at what our rivals are doing. China has been stockpiling crude oil at a record pace for the last 2 years. They are filling their strategic reserves to the brim. They are building new storage facilities underground. Why? Because they know war is coming, and they treat energy as a weapon. Now look at the United States. We have drained our Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR. It is sitting at 40-year lows. We sold off our emergency buffer to keep gas prices artificially low during previous election cycles to buy votes. That credit card is maxed out. If war breaks out tomorrow, there is no flood of emergency oil coming to save us. We have unilaterally disarmed ourselves in the middle of an energy Cold War. The Energy Island and the Jones Act trap. But wait, you might say. The United States is the largest oil producer in the world. We have Texas. We have North Dakota. We'll be fine. That might be true for the rest of the country. But it is not true for California. And this is the secret that Sacramento doesn't want you to know. California is what energy economists call an energy island. There are no pipelines connecting the oil fields of Texas and North Dakota to the refineries of California. The Rocky Mountains stand in the way. There is no transcontinental pipeline for crude oil. So, how does California get its oil? It produces some locally, but that production has been strangled by regulations. The rest must be imported by sea. It comes on tankers from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Ecuador, and Colombia. Now, imagine a scenario where global war disrupts tanker traffic. Or imagine the price of shipping skyrockets because of insurance premiums in war zones. California is cut off. But surely, you ask, we can just ship oil from Texas to California by boat through the Panama Canal. No, we can't. Because of a federal law called the Jones Act. The Jones Act mandates that any goods shipped between two U.S. ports must be carried on ships that are U.S. built, U.S. owned, and U.S. crewed. The problem? There are almost no Jones Act-compliant oil tankers left in existence. They are incredibly expensive and rare. So, in a crisis, Texas effectively cannot send oil to California by sea. We are trapped. We are geographically isolated and legally handcuffed. And just when we need every drop of refining capacity we can get, the companies are leaving. Phillips 66 announced the closure of its massive refinery complex in Los Angeles. That facility alone accounted for about 8% of the state's total refining capacity. It shuts down in late 2025. Chevron is moving its headquarters to Texas. This is capital flight. The oil majors are looking at the hostile regulatory environment, the lawsuits, and the bans, and they are pulling the plug. They are not going to invest billions to upgrade refineries in a state that has vowed to ban them. So, let's combine these factors. You have a state that is an energy island. You have the Jones Act preventing domestic rescue. You have global war choking off foreign imports. You have internal refining capacity shutting down. You have the retail distribution network, the gas stations being bulldozed. This is not a perfect storm. This is energy suicide. The $15 reality and the logistics of starvation. Now, we do the math. We bring the internal sabotage and the external threat together to calculate the price at the pump. When the global price of oil spikes due to war, let's say crude hits $150 a barrel. In Texas or Florida, gas might jump to $6 or $7. It will be painful, but the infrastructure is there to handle it. But in California, you have to add the premiums. You add the highest gas taxes in the nation. You add the Capan trade fees. You add the cost of the special summer blend fuel. And then you add the scarcity premium. This is the new variable. When you have blocked Costco from building high-volume stations, and you have bankrupted the independent owners, there is no competition left. The few remaining stations effectively have monopoly power. If there are only 2 stations left in a town, and the next one is 30 miles away, they can charge whatever they want, and they will. $12 a gallon is conservative. $15 a gallon is the likely spike price during a panic. But let's talk about what $15 a gallon actually means. It doesn't just mean you can't drive to the beach. It means the just-in-time logistics system collapses. Everything you eat, wear, and use is delivered by a truck. Those trucks run on diesel. When Phillips 66 closes its refinery, we lose a massive chunk of diesel production. When fuel costs triple, freight rates triple. Independent truckers will park their rigs because they cannot afford the upfront fuel cost to move a load. Supply chains will freeze. The cost of an avocado, a gallon of milk, or a sheet of plywood will skyrocket. This is hyperinflation led by energy. We are talking about the logistics of starvation. Grocery stores operate on razor-thin margins and 3 days of inventory. If the trucks stop, the shelves go empty in 72 hours. And remember the last-mile warehouse that the judge blocked in Fresno? That warehouse was intended to make delivery cheaper and more efficient. By blocking it, they made the logistics chain even more fragile. Now, imagine the social consequences. Imagine a nurse trying to get to her shift at the hospital. She pulls up to her usual station, but it is fenced off due to SB 445. She checks her app. The nearest station is 10 miles away. When she gets there, the line is around the block because panic buying has set in. And the price on the sign is $15. She literally cannot afford to go to work to save lives. Police departments will have to ration patrols. Ambulances will have to prioritize calls. This is a breakdown of the social contract. The trap is set. The empty lot in Fresno is more than just a failed business deal. It is a warning sign. It is a tombstone for common sense. It tells us that the state has prioritized ideology over reality. They have bet the farm on a transition to electric vehicles that simply isn't ready. They are burning the bridge back to fossil fuels before they have built the bridge to the future. And now, with war drums beating across the ocean, we are finding out that we are trapped on the burning bridge. The governor panics, the lawsuits fly, but the gas stations keep closing, and the tankers keep turning back. Do not think for a second that this is accidental. If you create a fuel desert, people have no choice but to leave or comply. But there is one final twist to this nightmare. What happens when you realize you can't afford gas, so you finally decide to buy that electric vehicle? You bring it home, you plug it in, and the lights go out. Because the same people who dismantled the oil infrastructure have also mismanaged the electrical grid. They have shut down nuclear plants and natural gas plants, replacing them with intermittent wind and solar. If millions of people plug in their cars at 6 p.m. while the sun is going down and solar power is fading, we face a catastrophe of a different kind. It is called grid collapse. If you think $15 gas is scary, wait until you see what happens when the grid goes down for 3 days in a heat wave. Security isn't just about guns, it's about gas, and it's about the grid. Make sure you subscribe right now, because in our next report, we are exposing the physics of the coming blackout. It is titled Grid Down, the impossible math of the EV mandate. We are going to prove why the numbers simply do not add up. You need to see it to believe it. Click the link on the screen and prepare yourself.